Hi guys, so today I'm going to be reviewing Derek Landy's Skulduggery Pleasant, The Faceless Ones, which is the third book in this very extensive series. Just to quickly tell you, my cousin let me know, she's the one that's loaning me this book, on this whole series really, she's called Ebony. She let me know that Derek Landy's kind of planning on writing a new book for this series, so I'm really excited about that. But anyway, more about this book. So I wanted to do more of a chatty, still non-spoiler review, because although I went into kind of what I really liked about it in the Goodreads review, which you can always check out if you'd like, my Goodreads link is down below, there were a few specific things, again they're not spoilery, that I want to talk about that I didn't mention in that review. So I just want to say that this was absolutely amazing. I gave it a 4-star, and basically a group of people are trying to bring back the Faceless Ones, which are of course these very scary gods from another reality, and Skulduggery and Valkyrie have to try and stop that, along with some of their friends and colleagues. So that's kind of like the main premises of the story, and we go from there pretty much. I'm so happy that I enjoyed this so much, because the last book I wasn't exactly, you know, thrilled with. It wasn't as amazing as I was hoping it was going to be. So reading this and having it to be a 4-star read was just what I needed to really fall back in love with this series after my little trip from the second book. I love how we're just thrown into the story, but we're not left feeling kind of dazed and confused, even though strangely enough it follows like a couple of months after the book prior to this, as do all the books, I think. Yeah, I'm not left feeling confused. I know what's going on. There's no gaps and spaces that I feel need to be filled, so it's just a nice kind of continuation a few months later. This book was so unpredictable. There were so many twists and turns, particularly at the end. There was a major plot twist that I was not expecting, and everything just went completely in the opposite direction to what I was thinking. I think the fact that because it was unpredictable about where it was going, it kept me on the edge of my seat, and whenever I was reading it I felt really gripped. For the most part, there were some parts that were a little bit slower paced, I weren't completely drawn to, but generally the whole book I was absolutely gripped. Once again, I am loving the short chapters, and I like the intersecting villain chapters in like italic font. Gave us a nice insight into what was going on in the, you know, other side of, not the world, but in the villains' lives, I guess. A very quick snippet of what was going on in their heads and what was going on in their territory, I suppose. Strangely enough, I found myself really drawn to Valkyrie in this book. Like, I had such an emotional connection with her, which is strange because I haven't had that feeling until now with any of the characters in this book. It's never been that strong a bond. But this one, it was just like, whoa. There were quite a few scenes where she was getting like beaten to a pulp, and it made me feel really emotional. I've got a few of those to talk to you about. It's not spoiler or anything like that, but if you feel like you don't want to know that part, feel free not to watch. I don't know. So there was a particular moment where Sanguine, or how do you say his name? Sanguine? I don't know. He punched her pretty hard, and I was just like, oh my gosh, at that moment I kind of, it clicked that she's just a child really, and I felt so emotional for her, and the fact that she was just so upset and distraught about what had happened to her, even though it wasn't life-threatening. It just made me want to cry a little bit. And then there was some more targeting towards Valkyrie that just made me really emotional, and then as well the tension and the heated conversation between Professor Ken Speckle and Skulduggery. I felt like that went real personal, and another quite emotional pull for my heartstrings. It's like it wasn't all fun and games anymore. Like when I came to this book, kind of like it felt like shit was getting real, and although I knew the danger that was like surrounding the story and the characters and that, I think previously I didn't acknowledge the threat properly. So I was literally worried throughout this whole book for these characters, particularly Valkyrie, because it just dawned on me how young she really is. So although I did say this book was unpredictable, there was a particular chapter, chapter 18, I think it's called In the Flesh. I just felt like that whole title was in itself was a hint, and although it was kind of speaking about something else, my mind was travelling to the idea of a different situation where this chapter might take us, particularly because of the key terms flesh and blood. That really stuck to me, and I think that's kind of what led me to believe what I was thinking was gonna happen, if that makes sense. I'm trying not to spoil anything. I was getting super excited for the events of that particular chapter, but even though I was kind of guessing what was happening, and for the most part I was right, it wasn't due to crappy writing at all. Quite the opposite, actually. I really enjoyed that chapter. It was a great one. If you haven't read it already, look forward to that. So as with the other books, so far as I'm aware, instead of like a couple of page sampling for the next book, we are given a unique kind of short story for the book itself. This one was called The Slightly Ignominious End of the Legend of Black Anais. That is such a mouthful. And I found it to be, you know, nothing exceptional, but it was a nice light-hearted, humorous, kind of action-packed mini story that kind of brought us back to laughing again after the dramatic events of the main story. And it's something I needed. I needed to laugh a little bit afterwards, you know, because if those of you have read it, you'd understand it was quite an emotional ride. So yes, I would definitely recommend this book. Totally the series so far, even though I was a little bit, you know, not pleased with the second one. So far it's still a really enjoyable series, and yeah, I totally recommend it. So that's a 4-star read from me, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye.